So hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Thanks for joining. My name is Martin and I'm going to tell you why this bike, the DRZ400S, is my favorite bike. It's definitely my most favorite bike I've ever owned. I've had a lot of bikes, probably 40, 45, 50 in my riding career, so it has to be, out of all of those, the favorite bike I've ever had, and I'll tell you why. So I have also a DR650, and I have a Honda Monkey, but I've had sport bikes, cruisers, metric cruisers. I've never owned a Harley, but I've ridden them, and I like them. I like all bikes, kind of, but every bike I had, I was kind of chasing what I didn't like in my next bike. So for example, like, scallop seat where I just didn't fit properly, or I just didn't feel comfortable riding it and I couldn't really move back, something like that, or riding position. Or with sport bikes, my wrists would always hurt and my elbows after extensive riding. I couldn't even ride more than like an hour straight on a sport bike. But this bike I find really comfy, especially if you have a little bit of back issues, like I guess everybody does when they get older. I really like the flat seat, and it allows you to move around, so you're not fixed in one seating position. You can kind of move backward, forward, especially when you're going on some really tight turns and stuff. You can kind of hike up on the seat and swing that bike under you, and it really handles really good. So also, it's a pretty quick little bike. I mean, it's 400cc. I think they're, I don't know, 40 horsepower, something like that. It really has a lot of power for what it is, and the gears are such close ratio. It really performs really well, so I really like that about it. And it's more than enough power. I've never ever found myself in a situation where I was like, oh, this bike is slightly underpowered, I don't have enough to get out of this situation, even on the highway. Mind you, I'll get to the highway point a little bit later, but yeah, quickly let's go through some mods I've done. So this rack is the rear rack is a precision rack, and a Nelson rig, or rig gear bag. So it's made by Nelson Rig. So this is the Enduro Trails model or something like that. It's about, I think, 9 liters or 10 liters, and it also expands, so you can you could unzip that and it'll expand an additional almost double its size vertically, and it is a hard shell bag, so it's really nice. It's just the perfect size to bring stuff with you, if you're bringing a snack or water, a place to put all your stuff. That's a good addition. And then secondly, I also put heated grips. So these heated grips I got from Amazon. They're really nice, actually. I like this integrated controller portion right here, where it's just right in the end of the grip, because I did buy a set of, can't remember the name, the Oxford heated grips, and I really didn't like them. They were larger in diameter than stock, like so much so it was uncomfortable. And that controller, the bracket they give you, it's quite a sizable controller. I'd say about 2 inches square and about 1 inch thick. There's nowhere really to mount it. You don't have a lot of real estate on this bike to mount it. So the heated grips, I kind of put those on all of my bikes. They're like 25 bucks off Amazon, and they work surprisingly well. So for that price, I would definitely not complain with them. I also put some Renthal bars on it. So these are the Ricky Carmichael High Bend, I believe. So they're nice because they got a good, a little bit more height to it. I felt a little cramped with the height. So just for better standing, instead of putting risers, I just went with a different bar. They're a lot higher. I would say, well, not a lot, 2 inches or so higher. And they also have a little bit less sweep than the stock bars. So stock bars kind of really swept back. Not horrible, but these were a lot better. I like this bend. It's a really nice bend. And then also upgraded the headlight. The headlight is it's a Cyclops. It's one of the only, so this takes an H4 bulb, and it comes with halogens, and the halogens are just really subpar in performance at night. They were just really bad. If you were on the road by yourself, the beam pattern and everything was really nice. Like, it had a nice beam pattern, high beam and low beam work good, but just with these newer cars and all their LED headlights, I would just get drowned out. I couldn't really see properly. So this Cyclops bulb, one thing that's really unique about it, and not that I'm, trying to sell you them, but they're the only H4 bulb that I could find that actually keep the low beam on half power when the high beam is on. So I tried an Amazon LED bulb, but that kind of like, you either had nice low beam pattern, but when you wanted high beams, the low beam would be gone and you just see, everything, like the trees and everything ahead of you. It shot really far, but then I would lose that low beam pattern like around me to see, animals or whatever, ditches and stuff like that. I couldn't see it properly with that. This is my second 400. So I actually had another one, a 2018, which was white, and I sold that with about 20,000 kilometers. And so this has just over 12,000 kilometers. So I have about 32,000 kilometers of combined riding one of these, and so I guess I could kind of tell you in every situation that I possibly had it in. I really enjoy it. The other mods I did was this Acerbis skid plate. I really like this skid plate because it is completely molded to the bike. There's no overhang. It's just really tightly molded to the motor so it doesn't hang down. It also has that linkage kind of guard there, or extension there, which is one vulnerable part on a bike when you're going off-road. So that's nice. It is plastic, but I'm not really going crazy off-road on this to need it, but it's good to have something because the stock little plate, that's a little aluminum plate, it did take a beating on my other bike, just from rocks and stuff hitting it. I'm pretty sure if you didn't have one, you could run the chance of getting rock hit the case and cracking the case open, which has happened to me. Also, these are some just generic frame guards, so just a nice little addition just to stop wear on your frame from your boots or whatever. And also I put these case guards on. These are also just generic Amazon case guards. You just glue them on with RTV. And my other bike, I did drop it, and pretty hard actually, and this most likely saved my case from getting punched by the shifter. So this is very typical with these bikes because the shifter has a very close proximity. And also one thing they tell you to do is round off this corner here on the forums. A lot of people have lost cases like that or punched a hole, and these cases are really soft. They're magnesium, high magnesium content. So you could pretty much take an end of a screwdriver and punch a hole in it. So I did profile that shifter arm a little bit and put these case guards on. So that was a good addition. Probably a must. Even if you just drop it, just like, standing there, you run the risk of punching a hole. Other thing I put was the Zeta Pro, I guess, I don't know if they're XC they say on them, but they're Zeta Pro hand guards. They're really nice. And also I use these tree mounts. These were actually on my other bike, but they bolt right to the triple clamp, and they give you a lot more rigidity with the hand guards, because alternatively they would just bolt right to the bars, but then they can swivel and pivot up if you drop it and hit something. So it did actually on my last bike that I dropped really hard here. You can see how far it is from the master cylinder, but it hit so hard it actually bent this and hit this master cylinder banjo bolt here. So that was a good thing to have. Saved my brake lever and clutch lever, I guess, in a drop. Other than that, I have really no other mods. I do plan on putting a tail tidy on this bike. That's, I guess, the last thing I want to do, just to clean up the back a little bit. Looks a little bit nicer than this big DOT kind of mandated giant fender and reflector. So that's about all I can tell you about my mods. So another thing I can mention, just I guess a little bit of the specs. By the way, these tires, I think they're BF Goodrich trail wings, but they are, sorry, Bridgestone trail wings. They are horrible. They do excel on the street. They're very good on the road. I have a lot of grip. They're very predictable and everything, but anything other than street, even grass, I've almost dropped this bike in just grass. They're really bad off-road. They're definitely not a dual-purpose tire. You'll struggle in pretty much anything but the street. Even in gravel roads, they're really bad. Luckily they're pretty much ready to be changed. Another thing, so it does hold 10 liters of gas, and my range seems to be almost exactly 200 kilometers until reserve, and the reserve is 3 liters. So you have another, I would say it uses about 3.5 liters per 100 kilometers. So with that additional 3 liters in the tank on reserve setting, you do have another, maybe I would say about 80 kilometers maximum. So full range of the tank would be 280 kilometers. It is water cooled, and I've never really had it run hot. I've heard the fan come on maybe 3 or 4 times in all these kilometers. Same with my other one. It seems to only come on when you're either breaking it in, and it was just warming it up and just running it in the driveway when it was brand new, and also if your off-road situation is really hot and you're doing a lot of clutch work, then you do get maybe that fan will come on, but only for like 5 seconds and then it shuts off. So it doesn't tend to run hot at all. It's also a dry sump system, so oil change is kind of interesting. The oil is up in the frame, so it has a reservoir in the frame. So basically this whole section here is the oil tank, and then you do have oil inside the case, but very little. Here's the oil filter. So the pickup tube is coming out of the frame down here. So when you're changing oil, you actually have 3 drain plugs. There's a drain plug here for the tank, one on the engine case, and then there's an oil filter boss that comes here under this skid plate that you can drain the oil out of, I guess, the oil filter housing. It does really go through oil with me. It seems to, you can almost tell that the shifting gets a little bit worse right at around 2,000 kilometers. So I tend to change the oil every 2,000. I think the manual says every 4,000 kilometer oil change intervals, but I definitely don't want to push it that far. It's absolutely gross at 2,000 kilometers, and I would think that would be just clutch material contamination. Other than that, there's not much other than it's a stock bike. It does have a very high ground clearance, so I think it's got 10 or 11 or 12 inches of clearance on ground clearance. It is a very tall bike. I think the seat height is 36.8 or 9, so 37, let's call it 37-inch seat height. I have a very long inseam. I'm about 6'2", just for reference, and my inseam is I'm about 34-inch inseam, 35-inch inseam, so I can easily flat foot this bike, even knees bent slightly on level ground. The ground does disappear really quick when you're off-road on this bike, because it is a full-size dirt bike, basically, style frame. So when you're kind of on that off camber on the side of a hill or something like that, the ground is gone pretty fast, so something to be wary about. Yeah, that's about pretty much all I can cover with the bike. Let's go to a little bit of a ride review and see how it rides. All right, here we are riding it. One thing I forgot to mention, I guess, in the review is the shifting on this bike is probably the best, smoothest shifting I've ever had on a bike. I really hate when a bike doesn't shift well, but this bike just shifts flawlessly in every gear. It has a very short throw shifter too, so it really shifts smoothly, quickly, and the gear ratios are very close together, so you're up into 5th gear by the time you hit 75 kilometers per hour, and then you got that, I guess, the rest of the rev range. Top speed of this bike is somewhere around 155 or 160 kilometers per hour, so that would be 94 miles an hour, 95. That's absolute top speed at red line, which is fast enough. I guess the only downfall of this bike really in riding is highway. It's not a good highway bike. That's 100% something you don't want to really be doing on this bike. It'll do it, like if you have to go a couple exits, just just to make it somewhere, or even a little more extended ride on the highway. It is really revvy. It starts getting buzzy at about 100 kilometers per hour. It seems to really like riding at about 95 kilometers per hour, so just shy of 60 miles per hour. It's really happy in that spot, but it gets buzzy, and you just sound like you're punishing it on the highway for extended periods of time, because it is revving um, really high. It gets buzzy in the bars and the pegs. Not a nice place to be. And also, this bike is pretty light. It's 317 pounds, I believe, ready to go, wet. So that's a pretty light bike. And any lighter, and I'd uh, probably wouldn't be that good, because at about 100, 110, 120 kilometers per hour, you can feel that it's light. I've mistakenly lifted the front wheel on this like countless times, especially going up a hill and you really go full throttle. It'll easily lift that front wheel up. So that's kind of something to be considered when people say this is a dual sport and that it's too heavy. Well, actually, I would say that it's right about right. Actually, if you look at the weight and when you're riding it, it feels kind of darty at about 100 kilometers per hour. Not really, not overly, but you'll especially notice it if you have a crosswind. You will get blown around on this bike quite a bit, but it definitely performs really nice. Like I mentioned, it really never has a shortage of power. Um, it's a pretty quick little bike for what it is. Um, and again, that shifting is just phenomenal. I just absolutely love the shifting. And one other thing I've noticed compared to, so I got a DR650, which, by the way, one of my pet peeves of that bike is its shifting. It shifts pretty bad at like first, second, and third. After that, it seems okay, but this bike shifts just so smooth, and it's such a short throw shifter. The brakes are good on this bike, the suspension's good. Everything's kind of a lot more sensitive, a lot more less throw, and right there. So suspension is stiffer than the DR650. It's better off-road, and the brakes are pretty powerful on this. The DR650 is a little bit softer, but I'll do a comparison review between the two bikes. But one thing I did notice about this bike is just it feels really engaging to ride, because the brakes are right there, the shifter's right there, the clutch is nice. Um, just overall package, it's a really fun bike to ride. And I know that they just dropped this bike, so this is a 2023, and they got rid of it in 2024, and the new DR4S or DRZ4S is out, which is a fuel injected version of this bike, and driving modes and fuel gauge and all that kind of stuff. Well, here it's pretty easy. You've got a trip meter. You got 2 trip meters on this, so I could track my ride and just reset a trip every time I fuel up. I know I got 200k almost to the kilometer before reserve, and then another 80 kilometers with reserve. So I don't really need a fuel gauge. I can tell exactly my range and everything with just the trip meter. So not really missing any of those things that new bike has. And as far as traction control and driving modes, I'm not sure on a 400 I'd really want or need those things. 40 horsepower bike isn't going to be surprising you with power really at any time, but sometimes it actually does surprise me. Like, when you're like going to pass somebody or something, you would hit it and be like, wow, that was a little bit more than I expected. So very fun bike to ride without getting yourself in trouble.
Really good around town, around the city, really good off-road, gravel roads, off-road in general. The suspension I did on my other bike adjusted because I think the guy played with the clicker. So it's a fully adjustable suspension. You have compression and rebound on the front forks, and then you have compression and rebound on the rear shock. And you also have high-speed compression adjustment. And he did play around with it, so I started experimenting with it. And many rides and many click here, click there, just to find it the way I wanted. And then I found out after reading the manual that they give the stock settings for roughly a 180-pound rider or whatever it came from the factory. And so I reset it and counted my clicks compared to what it said in the factory manual. And I ended up being to the click on every adjustment. So it kind of shows you that I guess the factory knew what they were doing, and they definitely have the right specs for my weight, which I'm around that rider rate that it came at. Um, so that was a good surprise. I cannot really fault anything on this bike. Probably the big controversial 6-gear debate on it. To me, it's a moot point. I don't think I would want to be spending hours on end on the highway on this bike. Like I said, it just gets buzzy and everything, and the weight alone, you know, when you're passing a truck or something, you get that front of wind hitting you. Uh, you know, you got to hold on. It's a light bike; it gets blown around, but um, would the 6-gear be beneficial in some instances? I suppose. I think that would probably you know, change the spacing of the rest of the gears. So, and the gear ratios I think are absolutely perfect on this bike. Like right now we're doing 55 kilometers per hour, almost 60. I think I'm in 3rd gear. Just rides really nice. And then when you're really on it, like from a stop, and you're just banging through those gears just constantly because they're so close together, it really makes it a fun bike to ride. I love rowing gears, so for me it's kind of a nice place to be. So it shifts really well. So I guess one of the complaints would be that 6th gear, and people would want it. I suppose it might, but it's not. Again, it's not really a prerequisite for me because this is, to me, a secondary road bike. I tend to avoid highways typically. If I'm going to do a highway ride, I will take a different bike. But for every other instance, this is a really fun bike. I always find myself when I decide to take another bike out, I kind of regret taking that bike and not this bike. That's how much I like it and how much fun it is. So all these other sport bikes and everything are nice, but for me, I grew up riding dirt bikes. I've always had a dirt bike in stock. I actually still have my first bike that I've ever had, which is a 85 Suzuki DS80. I still actually have that. Did a full nut and bolt resto on it, so it's like in pristine new condition, and that was my first childhood bike. But I've always loved dirt bikes. I love the way they handle on the street. I love the turn in on the dirt bike. I find street bikes and sport bikes and everything, they just keep wanting to go straight. Once you ride a dirt bike, you get that really sharp, quick, responsive turn in, and it's kind of hard to go back to another bike after you've had that kind of responsiveness. So for me, I like dirt bikes. I like dual sports. I really like dual sports on the street. There's literally, you know, no bump that you go over that isn't absolutely comfortable. I could go over a curb or a pothole and not even feel it. But yeah, that's what makes this bike so fun for me, is how nimble it is, how nice it shifts. Just that whole package, when you ride it, it's a really happy place to be. Um, Definitely think that it's a pretty fun little bike. And it's got a lot of power. exhaust, factory exhaust is actually really loud. It sounds nice. It's got a little bit of burble and popping on downshift. Um, I like it. I don't really have a burning desire to swap it out with something aftermarket. I would definitely say that it sounds nice. Um, Probably could shave some weight on aftermarket setup, but for now, pretty happy with it. Again, I think the only mod I want to do continuing on would be that tail tidy. That's pretty much it, and I think I'm done with the bike. There's not much more I want to do. And tires, I actually have a set of tires waiting for these to burn out and need changed. Something a little more dirt orientated. I think they're Shinko 244s. I like those tires. I ran them on my other bike. I have them on my 650. And I really like the way they road handle. They handle really good in the wet, and they're really good off-road. I think they're an 80-20 tire, so 80% off-road, 20% road. So I'm looking forward to putting those on. And not sure how much more I can tell you how much I like this bike. It's just a really fun bike. Very comfortable. All the controls are nice and smooth. I can't really find anything I would really change about it, and I guess that's how you know you found the bike you really, that's your favorite bike. I really don't want to change anything about this bike. It's perfect the way it is, especially after, you know, a few mods here and there. Nothing substantial, nothing performance, you know, driven. There's no engine mods, nothing I've really felt the need to do with this bike. So, yeah, it might not be for everybody. I mean, again, if you're looking for highway commuting bike or something that you're gonna take on highway a lot, yeah, I would probably not pick this bike. But for every other situation in my style of riding, this is definitely the bike that is my absolute favorite of all time. I'm in my early 50s. I started riding when I was 12 on dirt bikes, around that age. So I would say that out of the 40 or 50 bikes I've had in my career, this is kind of what I narrowed it down to. Really happy with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. My name is Martin once again. If you have any questions about the bike, feel free to comment in the video. I'll do my best to answer them. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.